right, Patrick, on the playbill it says that you are the director of this thing.
Yeah.
What does it mean to be the director of a completely improvised theater piece?
Well, yeah, that's a good question. I guess, I'm guessing after 18 years, I guess what it means is that, I put the stage presentation together. I'm just kind of, I guess more like the artistic director.
Okay.
Because a lot of what you see here visually is the result not of like necessarily my choices, but like our technical director, Cameron, who does lighting and makes everything look pretty. Our puppet wranglers, who make sure that this looks the way it should. If I'm really directing anything, it is the actual improvs by getting the suggestion from the audience and then calling the blackout when I feel like it's over.
Save me!
Stop! Can't we all just get along?
No, I'm already dead. I'm dead. She killed me. You're hired!
You've just explained how you end the show, but tell me how this whole thing began.
Oh, okay.
Brian called you up like almost 20 years ago.
Yeah. Just to do a class. He just wanted to add improv to the skill set of the puppeteers that he worked with. So I was brought in on like some random Tuesday night and had about 12, maybe 15 puppeteers. Some had done improv before.
Okay.
And then some were brand new to it. And so we did basic improv technique, some of the beginning games, got the vocabulary there. They started doing scenes very quickly. They were all doing great characters immediately.
Because they're infused with creating characters.
Totally.
Yes? I'm curious, like, I'm sure you have explained the concept of improv to hundreds and hundreds of people over your life. Was Brian like sure about what he wanted, or was he calling hoping that you could bring something new to his process?
I think he knew there was something out there that was going to be good, didn't know what it was. Let's find it together.
Amazing.
So that is kind of the improvisational spirit too, right? That experimental thing. And I was making adjustments to improv technique for the demands of the puppeteers, because like in regular improv, we make eye contact.
Right.
So many thousands of communications happen there. So many micro expressions are read.
Your
right?
situational awareness and all
everything,
yeah.
right? Body language. You get one of these, right? And the puppeteer is looking at the monitor that the camera's seen, because that's the Henson technique was developed for television.
Right.
So now they're improvising without any eye contact. They're all looking at these TV monitors, and these are the faces that can only have so much expression.
Yeah.
So.
Were you unsure that it would work at all?
Oh, totally. I was like, I'll cash the check and this is going to be over in a week, 18 years later. But the puppeteers were such good voice actors and brought so much emotion to it, and they can manipulate these, and that's the word they use, manipulate, in such ways that they get more behavior, intention and stuff through there, that it actually worked out well. But they have to be excellent ear listeners because they don't get real face-to-face connection.
Amazing. Brian was explaining that far from inhibiting their ability to improvise, that the camera-monitor relationship increases their ability to sort of free up their improvising brains.
It can, absolutely. And once they're used to puppeteering, right?
Yeah.
And they're used to like looking down on that monitor and knowing that when their puppet moves to the right in physical space, they see it move to the left on the screen, right?
Right.
Because it's not mirrored. So that already, right?
Yeah,
Once they have that and those neural pathways are built and solid, then yes, they can improvise very freely. But when they're learning, like when we brought improvisers in to learn puppeteering, and they're trying to do both at once, at first it's a nightmare.
It's like rubbing your belly and tapping your head.
Like an octopus doing it, and then we have counterclockwise, clockwise, counterclockwise, and alteration, and touch the blue or red spot every other. I mean, it's crazy.
Yeah.
And I that's why I don't do it.
But there must be a moment you must have witnessed over ththese 18 years many times of a puppeteer like getting it.
Oh yeah.
Like watching all those systems lock in.
Oh, it's beautiful. I was talking earlier, it's alchemical when you see somebody go from, I have to do this and I'm doing that and I'm improvising at the same time and this is all too much, to it all just kind of dropping in one syllable into kind of this boom, they've got it.
Amazing.
And it really is beautiful.
I mean, and I'm also imagining that moment is clear to the audience that something special is happening, but there's also this separate of what's happening between the performers on stage.
Oh.
Right? Like they're getting this whole other layer out of that.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. You get that kind of collective mind, right? That group mind, collective consciousness thing where everyone just suddenly gets on the same page without something being said explicitly.
That's crazy.
I call it the ding moment. Where like,
Is it really?
That's what I call it. Where it goes ding in your head and you go, ah, we know what's going on here now. And so they trudge through the beginning of a scene, getting some expository out, really watching each other, going like, "Who are you? What are you doing? Are we, you know?" And once that kind of is laid out in however it comes out organically, then hopefully we have that moment where they all kind of relax and go, "Okay, we know who we are, we know where we are, we know what we're doing. We don't know where the scene's going, and that's a good thing. We're going to discover that.
Yeah.
But we know the basics." Like the first 10 minutes of a film, you know, you'll go watch, you're going like, what is going on? Am I going to like this?
Right.
And then the penny drops and you're like, oh, okay.
Now I see
Now
where
I'm
we're
on.
at.
So it's that little awkward part of the life of storytelling, the expository. It's very risky in those moments.
Now, the puppets themselves and their mechanics and their different things that they can do, they require a lot of structure. I'm curious how that structure changes the approach to improv.
Oh, you mean the physical structure
Yeah,
of the puppets?
the physical demands of, like, some of them have light bulbs and some of them have CO2 gags and things like that.
It's distractions.
Yeah.
In improv, we're supposed to be so in the moment, right? No distractions, external or internal, right? You know, and if something comes up, we use it, right?
Yeah.
But then we have all these unwelcome distractions, like you said, like a mechanism where a light bulb goes off, or a mechanism when they can use it to make expression with the eyebrows, or whatever, or even just the physicality of puppeteering, going like, how is my puppet going to sell this? You know, do this action, do push-ups, or whatever, right? And so that's a new level of distraction that they have to work with and not freak out about.
Wendy has told me and Wendy has wings to fly.
Oh, it's catching my undies! Oh, good Lord! What? Oh, that is not cool! Oh, that's so embarrassing! Help! Oh my gosh, a ghost! Well, at least I just bought a new house. I guess that's... Oh, son of a bitch!
I imagine that you've more than a few times worked with a veteran puppet performer who didn't think they could improvise and show them otherwise.
Totally. When they've put that much effort into that discipline, and it's really become part of their DNA, it's really just it's like the quantum leap. It's a small jump, but it's significant for them to get from that to the I already do this in my life anyway. Because that's the dirty little secret about improv, is that's all we're doing when we're living.
Right. I don't know why that had never occurred to me before this moment.
I'm very prepared.
And also, we're talking about what's going on between the performers, but also there's a live audience, and so that is another part of the conversation that's happening, right?
Completely. Every time I come out here as the host at the beginning of the show, I'm going on a blind date with 400 people.
Right.
And you know, there's a certain range where like most audiences are similar in some ways, but there's a unique difference and a unique flavor to each one.
Right.
What they're lighting up to, what they're not responding to, how comfortable they are to sass me, and they take the piss out of me all the time, and that's fine. That's what I'm here for. I'm designed for that. Every audience has its own kind of personality, and our cast members are very sensitive to that. They figure it out.
Yeah.
And then in improv spirit, they yes and it. They meet it in the middle somehow and complement it.
And you guys have also traveled to other countries, like Edinburgh Fringe Festival. I found while touring, I was really surprised at responses of different countries to different things. Like in the US, all you have to do is say the name of the city you're in, and everyone goes nuts.
Crazy.
But nowhere else in the world is that true.
No. We know we're in Brisbane, mate.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like,
the Australians just don't care.
They just don't care.
That must be a learning process as well.
Oh, absolutely. Those first shows in even another state in this country sometimes can be have a little bit of a learning curve. Like, ooh, they don't like that here. Right?
Do any standout things you learned that audiences don't like in specific places?
I think I try to get rid of those files in my mind.
Fair enough.
So I'm not cringing all the time. Yeah. But I have had some pleasant surprises. We went to Salt Lake City, right? And you would think, oh, that's going to be very prim, right? It's just the cliche assumptions.
Yeah.
They were wild. their suggestions were sometimes a little bit salty, sometimes very salty, and they went with the salty humor.
Amazing.
And so so we left there going like, wow, I did not expect that.
That's so funny. I remember being surprised that New Zealand audiences were super loud where Australian audiences weren't. And
Really?
having met New Zealanders and Aussies, that's the opposite of my experience with them in person.
Socially, like in just
exactly.
regular, in real life.
Yeah, exactly.
When we went to Australia the first time, they were, I described the audiences in a good way as bloodthirsty. They wanted the most violent stuff from
Really?
these folks. Oh my God. They had us do a couple improvs. I was worried we're going to keep us from getting back through customs and passport control to the United States.
The penal colony humor.
Seriously, like it was rough. The second time we went back, they were a little bit more on the polite side. We had one character come in and with a French accent, and another one of the puppets said like, "Oh, don't listen to him, he's French." And the audience went, "Whoa." And I was like, wait a minute.
What line did we cross?
Isn't it a comedic convention to kind of make fun of the French because they are so amazing that they can take the joke, right?
Yeah.
But then I was realized, oh, we're the big kids on the global block. They don't want us making fun of anyone.
Anyone else? Right.
Right. We're the Yanks.
We have the most privilege.
Yes. So there was a learning curve.
Everything else is punching down.
So we stopped making fun of the French in that moment, and then we went to the Dutch, which everyone says is okay.
Belgians too, I'm assuming.
Oh, completely up for grabs.
Nothing against Belgians
No,
whatsoever.
don't write. Please don't write.
It's the inexpensive way for me to get to France in the 80s. After 18 years, are you still finding things that surprise you in every show?
Constantly. Wow. Constantly. The improvisers are so inventive. The audiences surprise me a lot. I surprise myself by tripping over things, or I start to tee something. 'Cause I don't have a script, right?
Yeah,
so
yeah.
I'm teeing up an improv, and then suddenly it just kind of leaves me, and I have to improvise myself and figure my way around there. So I'm surprised by good things and bad things.
We were in Queens, in New York, at the shop, watching them build the business puppets.
Beautiful puppets.
Beautiful puppets with
Gorgeous.
such amazing mechanisms. We were watching them problem solve the cash register eyes. And I was finding myself thinking about that balance between the structure of some bits and some of the audio and music that you have, and also allowing anything to come out of that. That's an amazing creative process you built.
Yeah, recreating those vintage pieces required us going back to some of our archivists and people that know the entire Henson, oeuvre and the whole canon and everything. Digging up old video. Sometimes there were no patterns left for those puppets, so they had to be recreated just visually by those artists that you talked to in Queens. Our show has the unscripted, impromptu, improvisational aspect, and then when we have to be precise, like in those choreographed routines, the puppeteers have to shift gears and go like, all right, it isn't like it's all cool now, let it all hang out, we'll deal with mistakes. It's, no, we're dealing with legacy here, and we have to show the level of puppetry that the Henson Company is known for.
Right.
And so they take that very personally. They feel very connected to that legacy and maintaining that quality.
Because they're immersed in the practice now, but they're performing these pieces from way before this was a practice
Before a lot of them were born.
And so I'm curious also if doing some of these old pieces helps modern puppeteers figure out where they are within the canon, or learn new things about how these characters came to be this way.
I think it does.
Yeah.
I think they get present with oh, this is probably the origins of this type of Henson character.
Right.
This kind of, cold, clueless, curmudgeon, which we've seen in a lot of different...
Sam the Eagle, et cetera, et cetera.
Our gentleman in the balcony and everything. So some of the themes started when when Jim was very young.
Right.
And expanded through his career and continue. So you're seeing sometimes the origin story of some of the character archetypes in those old routines.
So thrilling. I cannot wait to see the show tonight. Thank you so much for giving me this primer and how it began, man.
Oh, my pleasure. It's my favorite thing to do, and so always ready to talk about it.
Right, you get to play with puppets on the regular.
I have the best job. And actually, I don't play with the puppets. I respect their art way too much to besmirch it. I'm not good with
So
these.
you don't do any of the...
No, I'm terrible.
Amazing.
And after 18 years, I should have really studied it. I just kept thinking like, oh, well, let them do it. It's hard.
Fair enough.